Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest episode of Tales from Outer Space, taken from the subreddit HFY. The links to all the stories will be down below, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. And if you do, please consider subscribing.
Story number 1. The Court Case of the Pirates vs. Fred, written by chuckysnow. "This hearing will come to order," bellowed Trolsk, the head judicator of the galactic sector Epsilon Beta. He was attempting to settle the near riot of creatures before him. Despite his anger, he knew that a failed negotiation could very well start an open war. The Draconi pirates and scoundrels that they were certainly knew how to bend the laws to their favor, and the evidence before him in this case involved enough death and destruction to go around. This had better go well, he thought to himself. To all assembled parties, I wish as much as you that we came to an equitable conclusion today, but that cannot happen if you cannot at least start to quiet down and proceed in a formal manner. Trolsk barked. "I'd be happy if we settled on this orbit." The head of the Draconi parties spat and the judicator. "We have been thoroughly wronged, and we seek nothing less than blood for blood." A small, mostly hairless mammal on the opposing side snickered. Trolsk banged the gravel again, and finally the assembled parties settled down enough for the hearing to start. "If we might start, how would the Draconi delegation wish to convey their grievance to the court?" Trolsk asked. He kept an eye on the virtual mob of creatures in the galley. Behind the plaintiffs were another 20 Draconi. The defendant's side was a collection of dozens of different species, and no one seemed happy. They did not appear to be the ones on the side of the Draconi. If anything, the group seemed ready to pounce on the 5 grey-skinned reptilians seated at the table. "Thank you, Your Honor. We of the Draconi wish to complain most heartily that the crimes committed against us by that human sitting there. We consider his actions nothing less than on a level of one crime against our illustrious species, and demand recompense. I, Raphenus Galnorok, of the House of Kilcoin, represent myself and my 4 comrades, but I also represent the whole Draconi race, and we cannot allow these actions of that human—" "Fred," the human interjected. Raphenus was distracted for a moment. "What? Exactly is Fred? My translator does not understand it." "That's my name, Fred," Fred said. "Fred, do you have a house you represent?" the judicator asked. "No house. I'm guessing that I'm the first Fred that you've ever come across, so you can just call me Fred." "You would be correct. Raphenus, you may continue," directed Trolsk. Regaining his composure but losing much of his bluster, the Draconi continued. "Our complaint is very simple. After encountering this Fred and the freighter that he was on, we attempted to engage the captain in trade. Things did not go well, and the captain's life was sadly sacrificed." The crowd's rumblings grew louder, and he was forced to raise his own voice. "Though unfortunate, nothing that transpired was illegal under the system law. We then felt the need to best course of actions would be for us to secure the ship and release the crew. We brought the ship back to one of our own bases, where we fully intended to contact the rightful owners of the ship and legally negotiate the release of the ship and cargo. But before we could do that, the ship somehow exploded, destroying itself, our base, and 24 of our ships and several thousand of my species. We thought at first that it might have been something in transit that caused the calamity. However, we then learned that Fred was taking responsibility for the crime." The crowd again rose in volume. Translators couldn't handle all the traffic, and it was impossible to determine whether they were mad or not. But Trolsk imagined they couldn't be happy. He turned his attention to the creature called Fred. "Fred, do you dispute the charges put before you?" "Oh, I blew up the ship all right, but the rest of that is a pile of bovine excrement." "I'm sorry, I believe you used a phrase unknown to my translator. What's bovine excrement?" Fred himself was confused and his own translator tried to keep up. "Oh, I'm saying that those Dracani are pirates and liars, and they're just mad that they got what was coming to them for once. The room got much quieter as everyone waited to understand, and cheers went out as the translators spit out Fred's declaration. We firmly dispute the term pirate in this affair. By law, we are allowed to attempt to purchase any cargo flying on any ship. It is up to the captain and crew to purchase, to be fair. If you offer a trade of cargo for our lives, then you must be a damn pirate, Fred countered. Tosk again banged his gravel. Fred, would you please entertain the court with your side of the story? Sure thing. And those guys are right. It's pretty simple. We were getting ready to head into warp when we were fired upon by a ship full of Dracani. Those Dracani are known as the biggest pirates in the sector, and I'm sure that they ain't the first time that they've had to deal with them. The adjudicator quietly nodded in agreement. They locked onto us and boarded before we could do anything about it. They did the usual, round up the crew, slap a few of us around, threatened the captain. The captain didn't move as fast as they wanted, and they shot him in cold blood. Fred saw the confusion and added, they killed him without preamble. There was no reason other than to scare the rest of the crew, and for the most part, that worked. As low as the Dracani are, they usually let the crew hop into a shuttle or life raft, easier to scuttle as then outright murdering all of us, and save them the hassle of a course like this. I guess they don't have the time for kidnapping. Theft is good enough. Problem the Dracani had this time around was twofold. One, the captain owned the ship. As you, and now they, are aware, it's much different to kill the owner than it is to kill a captain. I'd imagine that owners wrote more laws than the captains have, which is why owners are so protected. The raiders killed our captain before he could even tell them this, not sure that it would have mattered. But, 2, I was on board, and I'd already had a run-in with these guys. Last time I spent 2 weeks drifting in a life raft, and the company I was working for didn't pay me for my trouble. That didn't sit too well with me, so I figured that I wouldn't let that happen again. So the next ship I was hired onto, I added a couple things to the engine. I got the captain's full permission to add the stuff, by the way. One was a bomb, the second was a timer. Every morning I reset that timer. The idea was that if I or the captain didn't reset the timer, something had happened to me and the crew. Whoever did something to us would be something done to them. I guess it worked, since they had a radical breach event at their base. I guess I should also mention that I spent a bunch of spare time learning all I could about the maritime law. I found out that getting stuck on a life raft without pay is perfectly legal, as well as a bunch of shenanigans the Dracani partake in. They seem to know that they can or cannot do just to stay on the right side of the law. I figured I'd better learn a few things myself, and I found a couple things that have a bit of a bearing here. What the Dracani don't seem to know is that the ship without an owner is fair game to literally the first person that lays claim. This I did the second they killed my captain. Fred turned to the galley. How many of you were on the ship Conrotna? Roughly half the crowd raised their appendages. And how many of you heard me lay claim to the ship after the captain was shot? The same crowd raised again. The Dracani seemed confused. The judge did not. Fred then looked at the small tablet in his hand. So, Your Honor, if I understand your maritime laws, specifically Section 824.65a of the Maritime Salvage Code, with at least 4 witnesses on my side, the Garantna was my ship when I was forcibly removed from it, and keeping me from my ship led to the losing of possessions of my ship and cargo when it exploded. The fact that the Dracani were too stupid to check the security measures means that I, as owner, am completely blameless to any losses that they have incurred. Fred looked at the 5 who sat with their jaws open in shock. Furthermore, I call in Section 827.3c, which basically says that they stole my ship, let it get destroyed, and I'm allowed to claim the damages that amount to 10 times the original value. The Dracani started making growling noises and talking amongst themselves. I assumed that they did not have insurance on my vessel, so the funds are directly payable by those guys, Fred said as he pointed at his adversaries, and to the group behind them in the galley. I would like to take this time to announce that I'm sharing these proceeds with my crew and the family of our captain. Fred said as the delayed cheers from the galley. The judge had to smile. It was a bold move for the Draconi to even bring this lawsuit, but they couldn't possibly have asked for a worse turnout. He pressed a button on the bench, and a cage of laser beams went up around the Draconi. They suddenly looked terrified. So, Mr. Glarnock, you obviously speak for your house and your cohorts. I am going to speak very plainly to you, and you are going to answer my following questions in a yes or a no manner. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. The proud Draconi responded. Did you know that you and your associates killed the owner of the Gretna, which is a capital crime? No, we did not. Do you understand that by putting a name of your house on the lawsuit, you are directly implicating your entire house in the death of the ship owner? Yes. Yes, I do. With the knowledge that you cannot legally kill an owner and then claim his ship, do you now see that Fred appears to be the legal owner of the ship in question? The Draconi looked at each other for a moment and then responded, Yes. Yes, we do. And do you understand that by keeping him from his ship, he is in no way responsible for security measures aboard his ship, up to and including a self-destruction, and additionally, any loss of life or property damage related to your illegal confiscation of his ship are legally on you, and not Fred? The answer came slower, but finally responded, Yes. And since, under oath, you have readily admitted to all of the above, aside from the capital offense, you now owe Fred a goodly deal of money. Yes. The adjudicator started tapping away at his screens. And do you have payments available? Court documents list the value of the ship as roughly 25 million, and the cargo is worth 15 million. It would seem that you owe Fred 400 million. Knowing that as a speaker of your house, you have placed this debt on you and your entire house, you will not be able to leave the court, and your house will be unable to perform any business dealings not directly related to paying Fred. Do you understand? The 7-foot reptile quietly answered, Yes. Do you have this amount available? I do not believe my entire house is worth 400 million. That was not a yes or no answer, but the court will accept it. By order of the court, due to the plaintiff refusing to pay, I am issuing a full hold on all family Coloquine property, accounts, and other holdings until such a time as Fred is satisfied. Several members of the galley behind the plaintiffs tried to sneak away, but they held back the court officers. Your Honor, if it pleases the court, I wish to take possession of Mr. Galdanak's ship and begin paying off his house debt to me. Although, under law, specifically 827.7d, I am only assessing scrap value of the ship according to the estimate I received a few days ago. The value is only 500,000. As the Galdanok started to choke, The ship's worth 10 million, he exclaimed, only to see the beams of the cage grow brighter. There may be, but the laws that have let you legally pirate ships and crew for years are the same ones that allow Fred to seize your ship for scrap value. The judge answered with some amount of satisfaction. Fred, is there anything else that we have not addressed? You seem to have come better prepared than the Draconi. Yes, Your Honor, I fully authorize anyone who wished to work on my behalf to secure any of the Kalkoken property. I'll pay any bounty hunters 50% of what they can obtain from anyone of this house. Fred turned to his adversaries, and as authorized bounty hunters, you'll have a great latitude in how you are allowed to reclaim my money. I wish you good luck to all of you. Fred held up a sheet of paper. This is a declaration that the Draconi refused to pay, and I therefore authorize force in retrieving their assets. The Draconi sat in silence, knowing that Fred had all but issued legal death sentences to every member of their house. We did not refuse to pay. I stated that we cannot pay. The judge smiled. Legally, there is no difference, and since I am aware of at least one instance of you yourselves used this rule and the cargo you were charging rent for, I know you are aware of it. The clerk took a paper from Fred, and within less than a minute's time every necessary document had been created, signed, copied, and filed. Fred was now the owner of the Draconi ship in orbit, and effectively the entire house. as he created legal shares for his new company for his old crewmates in the galley. Ducati turned even lighter shade of grey. They looked quite ill. Fred noticed this, and he quickly rolled the chair across the aisle. I'm an outsider and certainly new to your ways, but for the crime of making me spend 2 weeks on a lifeboat, I just destroyed everything you've ever known. Imagine what I would be willing to do if any of you idiots decided to come after me or my friends. Pass this on to the other houses. I'll be sending out a few freighters that your house is going to buy me. If they or any other ships ever get messed with again, I'll see to it that you do more than simply kill a few thousand of you. Fred smiled as he stood. Make sure your house knows that every outlaw in the sector is about to rain hellfire down on them to get my money. And if you ever escape prison, the captain has plenty of friends that'll be waiting for you. And I'll be right there with them. Have a nice day. End of chapter.
I hope that you enjoyed, and if you did, please consider subscribing. If you wish to support the author, there is a link to the original story, so pop over there and give him your support. If you wish to support this channel, however, there are a few ways to do so. The best and easiest would be to share this video with other people, as well as liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. All of these things tell the algorithm that this channel is at least vaguely interesting, and that may share it with other people. If you wish to support the channel in some other manner, watching my other videos would also help tremendously. Or, if you really like, there is a link down below to leave a tip or to join the Patreon. Any and all support is very much appreciated. And I hope that you all have a good one until the next time, and I'll see you then. Cheers.